Okay, thank you very much. Okay, just for a background on today's topic, and it is no longer news that President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the Petroleum Industry Bill 2021 into law. And this means that it is now the Petroleum Industry Act. The Petroleum Industry Act provides legal, governance, regulatory, and fiscal framework for the Nigerian petroleum industry, the development of host communities, and related matters. Discussing today's topic, which is Petroleum Industry Act, Nigeria, and the world, we are now being joined by Mr. Olabode Shomi. Mr. Olabode Shomi is the consultant to the House Committee on Power and the Senate Committee on Gas. He's also the co-owner of Cab3 Limited, a member of African Energy Roundtable, a publisher and editor at large of Energia Today. Good morning, Mr. Olaumi, and thank you for joining us today on the African Summit.
Good morning, and thanks for having me.
You're welcome, sir. Okay, just what's your, I know you've done so much as regards Petroleum Industry Act. What is your perspective about the Petroleum Industry Act? How can you explain the Petroleum Industry Act so that a layman in Warri, Uyo, Calabar, and other places in the Niger Delta to understand?
Okay, thank you. I don't know whether you could say I've done so much on the bill or the act itself, but I could say that I was part of the team working with the legislators which prepared the bill, which ultimately became part of the act. So one way or the other, you could say I have some perspectives to the thinking of the draftsman in terms of how the bill was prepared. I think if we could say in a single sentence, you could say that the Petroleum Industry Act is singularly the most important event in the oil and gas industry in the last 20 years. So if we were to talk to a man on the street, I'll tell him that come and hear about the most important thing that has happened in the industry in the last 20 years. That would be a statement to make. But more importantly, if we were to look at the things, is that the Petroleum Industry Act gives a framework in an organized format for how the industry should run. And the thinking really will be, how did we get to this stage? You'll recall that in 1999, Nigeria moved after decades of military rule into civilian administration. And there was the drive for greater privatization of government institutions to make it efficient. One of the first that happened, and the most successful one, was that of the telecoms. And there came the drive and the thinking that the same could happen within the power sector, the oil and gas sector. There were some reforms within the power sector, which is a different issue on its own. But while they could not agree into how privatization should take place within the oil and gas sector, there came an idea and a need for a robust framework on how the industry should be run and how the industry should be organized. And that's how the thinking of the Petroleum Industry Bill came about. Over the years, the bill came up with different initiatives and different stakeholders had their objections to it. But over time, or quickly should I even say, the issues with the stakeholders were overtaken, and there was greater politics within the Nigerian framework, which was what delayed the passage over the years. And of course, within the legislature in Nigeria, there is this, should I say, rule or law in existence that when an act or when a bill is being discussed in the lifetime of one assembly, it cannot be carried over to the next assembly. So as a result, that explained the long delays. So every assembly, the act needs to be, or the bill needed to be started over again. Unfortunately, this time, the jinx has been broken, so to say. The greater stakeholders, the operators, the IOCs, seem largely satisfied. I mean, there are some concerns with some other people and all that. But more importantly, it is a structure, a framework that will attract investment, at least more investment than we currently have. And it's a structure and a framework that will allow greater organization and legal structure for the petroleum industry as we know it. So to the man on the streets, yes, this is a law, which is the biggest development in the last 20 years. It is also a law that will ensure greater development for their host community. It is a law that will ensure that the industry becomes more profitable for everyone who is concerned, including the man that works on the street. So that's how I define it in simple terms. I think you're mute,
All right.
Mr. God.
Thank you very much for that elaborate answer. So what are the major highlights of the Petroleum Industry Act?
Okay, the act itself is separated into 5 sections. So you have the governance section, which is really the part that is the part of the act that is unsung today, which is what creates or ensures for an NNPC limited liability NNPC company. There's also a administration, which basically looks into how things will run in the industry, particularly for gas. It's most relevant for how the gas sector will run. There, of course, there's the fiscals, which we'll talk about, the taxation and the amounts that will go to, that will be paid by the operators. There's the host communities aspect, not so big, but it's attracting a lot of attention on it. And then there will be the implementation, how the debts and liabilities and all of that is going to be transferred from the companies that are currently governments to the private sector government. So basically, those are the 5 areas of the act.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, have you noticed some lapses or issues in the act?
Well, first of all, let me say this as a caveat. There is no perfect law, because man-made laws are precisely that. They're made by man. I think the issue is not identifying the imperfections in the laws per se. I think the issues will be for there to be an execution or implementation of those laws. And in the process of the working of the laws, you would discover where the laws does not help society, or where the laws can be improved upon for it to further help society. And the easiest way you can compare it is how software companies run their software. I mean, even the most celebrated ones. Now, when Microsoft released Windows 8 or Windows 7 or even 98, they don't release it as a perfect document. No software really comes out as a perfect document. So the software goes out, and then once you have an error or when there's a system collapse or whatever, there's expected to be a feedback to the organization, which then goes into the team of software, the quality assurance people within the software department that runs those things. And then they make corrections. Those corrections are what you know as patches. So when you hear of an update on a software, it basically talks about patches to correct certain imperfections that are noticed. The thing about the law is that it gives an opportunity for amendment. And as early as Tuesday, when the National Assembly will resume from their recess, the president has sent in a motion for an amendment to the law. And the amendment was in the governance aspect. They wanted to remove the Ministry of Petroleum as well as the Ministry of Finance from the board of NNPC, arguing that the Ministry of Petroleum and the other ministry and the Finance Ministry can effectively perform their duties without being on the board. It's neither here nor there. I mean, if you ask me, what is important and what should be important to all Nigerians is that we have an NNPC that is effective and that delivers on its objective to Nigerians. So we keep our eye on the goal and it's keeping an eye on the goal that ensures that we have a functional society and functional law to ensure that we achieve prosperity, which our people so greatly deserve.
Okay, thank you very much for your perspective so far. And in case you are just joining us, we are discussing on the topic, the Petroleum Industry Act, Nigeria and the world. So, and we are joined by Mr. Shoumi Olabode. Okay, Mr. Shoumi, what's your opinion on, or in your opinion, how will the Petroleum Industry Act impact the petroleum industry and Nigeria?
Well, I think we already have touched on that. So like I said, because it brings greater structure into how the industry governs itself, it's going to attract or provide a framework that will attract greater investment into Nigeria. Once there is greater investment, it means more work will be done. More work means more opportunities for small and medium scale companies. More opportunities for small and medium companies also means more opportunities for employment, for people. But to zero in, and I think I'd like to give you a perspective within how the gas sector has currently been structured. There's one of the gas fields, or one of the production sharing contract, PSCs, which at the time it was signed was basically an oil contract. But in the course of time, the gas there was being utilized. Obviously, associated gas, which either was wasted, was now channeled and sold. But there was a big problem. And the big problem was that even though the gas was sold, which is pure business, there were no terms for disbursing the proceeds from the gas, that came in from gas. And this was on for many years. And at the time, it was being rumored that there was over $1.2 billion within escrow that was kept into that. All of that is going to change. So ab initio, when you go into agreements and all of that, there'll be framework for that. There'll also be structure and framework for development, a holistic development within the gas sector. So basically, you're looking at greater structure. You're looking at us being more competitive. You're looking at an industry that will overall simply be better for it. I don't think we'll be able to go into more specifics without necessarily splitting hairs, but greater structure for the industry, more investment, more employment opportunities are what people should look into.
Okay, Mr. Shoumi, until its passage, you can agree with me that the Petroleum Industry Act generated controversies over the allocation to host communities. And now the question is, how will it also impact the host communities?
I think the draftsmen, and there was a very healthy and robust debate around the issues, that surrounded the host communities. But largely, what they had come up with was the host community. There'll be a trust fund that will administer the funds for the host communities, and that is based on antecedents. I had said that when laws come into place, the laws are supposed to interact with community and interact with the business environment, and where there are imperfections or where there are issues, then those laws can be changed. Now, in the past decades, more than 20 years, there has been a lot of money that has gone into the Niger Delta, and most of it are largely unaccountable. And the development in that area does not tally with the investment that has gone in. This is not a blame game, really, and this is not to say somebody's at fault, but the issue is that there has to be a way forward so that there can be effective development there. And that was where the community trust fund came in, such that they will exist by law, and they will be accountable for how the things are disbursed. So whether it is infrastructure that needs to go in, whether it is sponsorship for scholarships and the related, there will be a proper structure to it. They'll be accountable, people can check, and of course, it will be profitable for people. So that was the idea behind the trust fund. And it is expected that within a few years, this particular trust fund will significantly impact the lives of the people.
Okay, so will the expected positive consequences on the host communities create multiplier effect in the oil and gas industry in Nigeria?
Of course, that's a given. I mean, there's a popular saying that has roots in Nigerian folklore, which says that an idle mind is devil's workshop. It is believed, or it's a logical consequence, that once people are more constructively engaged, once people have a focus and an idea for a future that they can see, it becomes easier for them to be able to pursue their own goals. And then the companies, the industries can actually do their own thing. So definitely there'll be less interestiveness. In the process of that, the industry will function as it is. So the cost of security for the industry will significantly go down, and there will be less disruptions. So those are logical things.
Okay, thank you very much for that. So should we expect significant investment capable of increasing Nigerians' rig count and reserve in your projection?
Yes, now investment decisions are multifactorial, so it's not just one factor. We need to realize that over the years that we have dilly-dallied in passing the bill, some of these investment funds have gone into other places. At the time that the bill was thought of, Nigeria was the biggest investment destination for Africa. But whether it is by accident or by incident, it so happened that it was during that time where investment in Nigeria was reduced, that gas was discovered in Tanzania, oil was discovered in Uganda, in Ghana, and all that, and by the same actors. So it is not impossible that investment that was made, that was destined for here, found its way in other places. Investment, if that were to be the case, those investment decisions are not going to change overnight. They're not just going to suddenly stop investing in other places simply because we have technically got our acts right. But it does mean that we are creating an environment where we are going to be more competitive to attract investment. Whether that will now be the reality, it's just for us to see. But I believe, in my own opinion, that we will attract greater investment than we have had before. That's the much to say on that.
Okay, so we will pause at this point to take some questions on our chat box. This one says, Mr. Kayode Oluwadare says, okay, it says, thank you for your deep insights. Okay, says, thank you for your deep insights, Mr. Labode. And it now followed up with a question, does the PIA anticipate the withdrawal stroke divestment of most of the IOC's hydrocarbon assets in Nigeria as they pursue renewable energy projects?
Well, that's a borderline between the politics of the industry. I think the PIA is not second guessing the boardroom decision of any company. And I don't think it can. I don't think there's any law that any law that is forward-looking that will aim to affect the thinking within the board. Whether it is Shell, whether it's Chevron, whatever IOC, the decisions on what to do and where to invest is incumbent upon the management and the board of those companies. What the PIA will do, or where it will matter, is that whenever somebody is going to make a motivation or justification for investment in Nigeria, the PIA will be one of those factors that will add to the motivation to support the need to invest in Nigeria. As per divestment from Nigeria, I don't think anybody is really divesting in Nigeria per se. What we have had, or what we have had as against what we have heard, is that there are people who have gone from onshore investments to offshore investments. I mean, that's a big difference between big difference between that and totally packing their bags and baggages and going out. So I think at the end of the day, it's actually a new visa of opportunities. So if you have IOCs leaving onshore investments, it provides opportunities for the national oil companies and the local and the private oil companies to run some of those wells. Because we need to realize that some of those things that we call marginal fields are actually large fields when you compare it with the rest of the world. I mean, 20,000 barrels, 50,000 barrels a day, that's a good can find it. I mean, they may not be up to 250,000 you probably have in Agbami, or 300,000, but it's still significant funds that can be used to do a lot of things. So I think we do not need to really worry about the dynamics of the actions that will take place within the industry. I think with time, some of those things will sort themselves out. There will be a balancing act of sorts, and which is normal for the free market. So let there be a push and pull within the industry. And when that is settled, I mean, the nature of the free market is such that the society benefits from it. What we don't want is for us to have a law that will not create a level playing field, or to have a law that hinders the proper interactions within the free market to ensure that Nigerians and ultimately the world benefits from it.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Labode. What's your opinion on issues such as pipeline vandalism and oil theft?
Well, it is bad. That's my opinion. It is bad and it should be stopped. It's as simple as that.
Okay, it's bad and it should be stopped. Okay, so do you envisage any challenges in the process of implementing the PIA, and how do you think they could be tackled, if any?
Okay, in the course of our society is divided. When you talk of division of labor and all that, enforcement of laws rests upon the security forces. So you're talking about the police, you're talking about the military, civil defense, the whole industry, the security industry. What I think should happen, that's to add value into the implementation, is to have people within leadership, that's those who make strategic input into the strategies for law enforcement, to be engaged, first of all, for them to fully understand the impact of the industry into the economy. Yes, people understand that it's the biggest economy in terms of forex earnings and all of that, but they may not necessarily understand the dynamics. So they should be engaged to understand that, and then engaged, maybe some seminar, knowledge sharing sessions and all of that on how the structure works. Then they are able to take whatever input they get from that and apply it within their own strategy. I think it's just for them to know more about the law. But how to implement laws is a different total set of skills that is not available to engineers, or, well, I won't say not available, it's not part of the training for engineers, lawyers, economists, and all those that make up the oil and gas industry. It's a different set of skills entirely. And they are the best to know where the key challenges will be in that area.
Okay, thank you very much. For those asking us if this event is recorded, I have a good news for you. So I'm pleased to let you know that this event is recorded and it's also streamed live on our YouTube channel. So after this event, it will be posted on our YouTube channels Facebook pages and Twitter handles. So you can follow us on our Twitter handle at The Daily NG, Facebook page, The Daily NG, as well as our YouTube channel. So you can have the full record of this event. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Olawode, let me get back to you. So now, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Okay, yes. So what advice do you have for the federal government, oil companies, and the host communities?
Well, that's a very open-ended question. I mean, well, I think we should be patient with the law. We should allow the law to work. We should allow it to interact with the environment, with the industry. We should give it opportunity to be productive. The host communities to also owe it to themselves to actually know the law, such that their opinions and their thinking about the law does not come in from opinions and hearsays of friends and gossips within the barber shop, the beer parlor, and hairdresser shop, and the related. So I think on the strength of that, we will have a much better law and a much better working environment. I mean, if you are more specific, maybe I could highlight, but I really don't know how best to answer that question.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Shomi Olabode, for joining us today. And we look forward to having you again next time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
We've come to the end of our summit today. So feel free to follow us on our Twitter handle, The Daily NG, our Facebook page, The Daily NG, as well as our YouTube channel, The Daily NG. Thank you very much.
Yeah, hello.
Thank you.
Hello, please, before we leave, we would like to entertain questions from whoever has more questions to ask, especially before the facilitator leaves. Please, we can drop our questions in the chat section, or you can unmute yourself and kindly speak. Do we have any response? Questions, contributions? Okay, so I think can we get the final word from our facilitator?
Okay. I think we as Nigerians owe it to ourselves to be more informed in our decision making and more informed in our contributions. And because we are in a knowledge economy, there's a need to be knowledgeable to be able to do that. I think the first thing for anybody who really considers himself a stakeholder in this industry to do is to study this law. And that does not necessarily mean reading line by line, but at least study the general concepts, the general thinking of the law. Come up with summaries, read summaries and the related as it relates to the law. And above all, be able to dovetail the law to how it affects him in his daily living. I mean, so if you are a doctor and all your interactions with the PIA will be how it affects the pump price of petrol. So you want to understand how the mechanisms are in place for determining pricing of petrol. We owe it to ourselves to know that. So it is on the basis of that we can form a critical mass of people that can constructively engage government and ensure that what we most humbly and passionately want in terms of a more robust industry can be achieved. There's a limit to which aggression and protest can achieve the positive results, but there's really basically no limits to what a knowledge society can do in a knowledge environment to ensure that results are actually achieved. So I think for us as Nigerians, for everyone, let's study this law. Let's understand that it affects us in whichever area we are as human beings. And then let's allow the forces, the push and pull within the free market to determine how the industry will work. Thank you. Those will be my final comments.
We really appreciate that. Thank you very much. It's been a very insightful session for us. While the session was going on, we had one of our veterans in the industry, in the person of Dr. Dino Fawile. He's the chairman, MD, International Energy Services. Dr. Sir, we would like to have you say something about this. We really appreciate your presence here.
Okay, thank you very much. The topic of this discussion is very timely, and I appreciate the organizers putting this program in place, and I believe many Nigerians who turn to this, whether few or large number of people, will benefit from the discussion. Having said that, you see, many people tend to have an erroneous impression that PIA will address all problems associated with the petroleum industry. People think of it as a silver bullet that will tackle the myriads of problems we have in the industry and by extension, the Nigerian economy. But of course, nothing prevents a comprehensive inclusion of some of the topical issues in the industry, but I don't believe that is the way laws are framed. Now, what I believe should happen, I agree with the last speaker, that we Nigerians, we should study the PIA and know how we can make it to work. Now, part of this survey, we include the understanding of the institutions that have been set up. Like, for example, we have Upstream Development Commission. We also have Midstream, Downstream Development Authority. When we are talking about the price of fuel and things like that, it falls within the purview of the Midstream and Downstream Development Authority. Now, how will this authority work to have positive impact, on the Nigerian economy and indeed Nigerians? And now, I understand PPRA has been scrapped. I believe I wasn't too sure about PEF, that's Petroleum Equalization Fund. But if the government is going to do the right thing, price equalization fund should also be scrapped. The only caveat to that is I don't know how government will want to tackle the issue of transportation. Since the regulated uniform pricing system has not been abandoned, because when the price equalization fund was set up, in the 70s, it was to tackle the issue of transportation from one part of the country to the other. Because before that arrangement, uniform pricing system was put in place, there was no question of paying transporters, any subsidy or any money and so on. So as long as government regulates the price of fuel, and then the price is not uniform, the price is not open to market forces throughout the country, there will be the issue of transportation, because otherwise the price of fuel in Lagos may be 140, 145 naira per liter, and in Maiduguri or in Sokoto could be about 250, 260 when you add the price of transportation. So this is the issue that price equalization fund may still have to tackle. But I'm using this to illustrate the fact that it is the institutions created by PIA that will that will operate the law and then translate it into policies and practices that will affect Nigerians. And that is the starting point. We should study this. And if there are anomalies, in the implementation or operation of this institution, Nigeria should have strong advocacy for a positive change. And as you know, we in Nigeria, we always want to take advantage of our fellow Nigerians with a view to putting our back against the wall. But it is when we have good people, strong media, and professional institutions that will be able to give a shout to government that, hey, this thing should not happen this way. And after a long of pressure or advocacy, some of these things will could be changed with a view to not necessarily even changing the law, but making those agencies of government to change their practices and the way they administer the provisions of the law. So this is just my my view. In the other respect about engaging the companies, whether local companies or international companies, we should open our eyes wide and see how their operation will affect the lives of Nigerians, because after all, we are operating under the new law as it relates to various activities, businesses that will that will affect Nigerians. That is just my short comment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. We really appreciate this very extremely insightful contribution. Well, I think we are highly favored to have you around today. Thank you so much, sir. Before we round up, we would like to ask again if there is anyone here who wants to ask a question from our facilitator or from doctor, or even if it's a comment you want to throw in too, you're welcome. Just can we have indications? You can indicate on the chat box, or you can unmute yourself and kindly speak. Okay, I think it's been perfectly delivered. There has been very serious points of references that have been given to us both by the facilitator and our dear Dr. Diro. We really appreciate the contributions. Mr. Olabode.
Thank you.
Are we still connected, sir?
Very much so.
Would you like to respond before we close the meeting today?
Okay, what exactly am I responding to?
No, doctor has said quite a lot, a very robust lot. I don't know if you have just a comment or so.
Okay, I think first of all, it's a privilege and an honor to be on the same panel with Dr. Fawibe. Dr. Fawibe, I've been in the industry before I graduated from the university, and his reputation.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I actually have people who mentored me along the line who worked under Dr. Fawibe on our road. So
Thank you.
It's a pleasure to be here. I
Thank you.
will not be in a position to make additional comments to what Dr. Farrell said. But I mean, it's a pleasure, and I believe over and beyond, we should allow the industry, we should allow the law to take effect and to work. And in the process of working, if there are things that we see that we can now start to act upon. But right now, we're in the process, we're in the time where we need to allow certain actions to take place. And on the strength of those actions, we can now have basis for further discussion. Thank you.
Now, I'd like to call Mr. Godswill Odiong as moderator to please bring the meeting to a close. Mr. Godswill.
Okay, thank you very much. So we've come to the end of our meeting today, and hopefully we'll send you notifications and invite on our next meeting. Thank you very much, everyone, for being a part of today's discourse.